How do I sound?
Great.
Great levels.
Amazing levels. Cool. We're here. We got Larry, DJ PreSkool, on the Very podcast. Our dear friend. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Damn.
Great seeing you guys again.
Yeah. We first met at Athenaeum a couple months ago.
Correct.
A psychedelic library in Midtown Manhattan. Highly recommend. And we were going over to like look at the records, and you were standing there, and we started talking. And I was like, yeah, I'm a deadhead, this and that, thinking we were going to connect about that kind of music. I was like, this guy's an old head, too. I guarantee it. And you're like, yeah, Grateful Dead's cool. I used to smoke joints with those guys, whatever. I was like, you got my attention. But you're like, house music is where it's at. And it just blew my mind. So, welcome.
And you guys got to see me lay out my house.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was. We got to see the legend in action. It was pretty awesome. Union Pool on a Friday night. Jesus Christ, man. The ladies were going berserk. Everyone was having a good time. It was lit. It was a late night for us. For us.
We were like, we might not last as long as you.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
that's the thing with house music right now. It's like like I told you before. I mean, I just think for this time and place in the world, house music is a very powerful, positive thing for people, and particularly young people. It just really hits them hard, and the kids that are making it have. It's very similar in my mind to the way when the Beatles and the Stones started. They were taking in all this from the old blues guys, and Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, and all this, and what you've got now with the house is that the kids that are making it are going back and listening to the Acid House and the early Detroit and New York and Chicago house, from the 80s and 90s, and then which was also, in a lot of ways very political, and they're kind of redoing it for this moment, which arguably is one of the most intense moments going on in human history right now, and the positive nature of it is just so strong. And you saw it at Union Pool. I mean, that's the kind of reaction I get everywhere.
Wow.
When I play it. I mean, people come up to me. The kids come up to me. They send me messages on Instagram. I mean, they're really feeling it because, they want to be positive. They don't want to believe that there isn't a solution to these problems, and the house really helps them, makes them move forward, and that's precisely why I do it. And it's the way I feel. I mean, it makes me there's absolutely nothing I do in my life that's better than when I'm behind the decks. Playing that music.
Oh, you certainly look like you're having a great time.
I mean, and I've told you before. I mean, I go by the fact that when I was 18, I was watching Led Zeppelin, in front of big speakers, maybe 500 of us there, and it's that same feeling I get when I'm really banging it with the house, and it's just hitting people. It's like it's that same feeling, It's like this positive energy that comes out of the music and goes into each of us and then back to us, and the range of people, it's amazing. I mean, at one gig I had, like I said, I work in a community garden. Yeah. And the woman who kind of is the head of the garden is a really nice woman. She's, early 40s. She's a mom. She's got 3 kids. So she came to one of my shows with like 6 of her mom friends, all like much older than the other crowd, and they just loved it. Wow. They stayed all night, closed the bar down, were hugging me afterward, just loved it. It's like it's very universal music, and you can particularly see it how the way it's bringing in Latin music. There's a lot of cumbia house that's happening. The Afro, like it's just like rock and roll in the sense that it can take from all these different genres and kind of transform into this incredibly powerful thing.
I'm curious because you've been around a long time. You've been listening to music for a long time. How much of it has to do with the substances that are combined with these things. Like you saw, like there was acid music in the 60s, and then there's music that you listen to from the 70s and 80s. You're like, that's cocaine and alcohol, and like this is MDMA music.
Yes, absolutely MDMA music. And I mean, I try to take MDMA every time I DJ. I can't do. Sometimes I don't have it, but like as much as possible, I'm there, and most of the kids are doing it too. And I think it is that because one thing about MDMA is that it's that drug that really clues you into the universal nature of all of us and how we're all connected, and that's really where the house music goes. I mean, particularly with the beats being in that like kind of 120, 125, it's very like it just kind of locks you into a like it's not unusual for me to go all night at say 125. Like every single song. I mean, I'm adjusting, but like I just stay on that beat all night, and people just they ride the wave with me, and it's just amazing. And I think that it's definitely that kind of music, and
did it start with that? Like, how did house music start?
Well, house music started, basically in gay and black clubs, and kind of evolved from disco.
Oh, okay.
So you had Frankie Knuckles and Larry Levan here in New York, and then Knuckles went to Chicago, and it came out of that scene where people were and very heavily influenced by the hip hop that was coming in the sense of the idea that if you've got a certain section of the song that really sounds good, like you play it a lot, you know what I mean? And a lot of these guys, Levon and David Mancuso and a lot of these guys that started the house, I mean, they would play a particular track. They might play it 4 times a night. It was about the feeling of getting everybody. It was the music and the people together.
And the crowd doesn't mind. Like
of course not, because everybody
everybody
is locked in together. I mean, you got to pick the right music. But when you pick that music and everybody's locked in, and it came out of disco. So the late 70s, particularly in the gay clubs and clubs with a lot of poor people. Really, the disco began to evolve into this whole house thing, with that 4 on the floor beat and a lot of soulful vocals, and a lot of piano percussion, and honestly, what's happening now is the kids that are making it have heard all that, and they're bringing a lot of that back in. The samples that they're using are amazing. The lyrics that are coming out are very meaningful. There's a song that's very popular now, that came out of, it's called Thin Line, and it's kind of a reworking of an old Lisa Stanfield song, but it's just, it's amazing, we're all dancing on a thin line. Yeah. And like the people feel it. Like everybody knows that we're in this incredibly fucked up situation. And when house started, everybody was in a fucked up situation, And then since then, it's blown up, and you've got EDM and you've got techno and you've got all this stuff. But ultimately, the house thing is this soul. It's this soulful part of it. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, all genres are great. Like I got nothing wrong with techno. There's nothing wrong with hip hop, rock, everything. But when it comes to really hitting inside people's soul, because of the fact that house came out of that whole disco, which came out of the R&B, so it's just kind of like direct connection to really the blues and everything. This is why it's so, I think, it's so powerful and it hits people so much. Wow. And I can tell you that. I mean, most of the people that come to see me are in their 20s, and they love this stuff. They know it. They feel it, and I'll play, like my tracks tend to go really long. Like I don't believe in, there's a lot of different ways to DJ, but to me, when I'm DJing, I'm simply channeling to everybody there. I'm just looking at you. I'm watching you, and I'm giving you. So if the song's 8 minutes long, man, I let it go.
Hell yeah.
You know, like enjoy it the way I'm, and then just bring in the next one and bring it back, up like that, and it's just an amazing thing. And the last year and a half or so, it's been that way, and it really doesn't end. Whether there's 300 people there or 20 people there, it's just hitting people strongly. So that's why I feel like it's the rock and roll of today in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Although the whole country and the whole music business is so screwed up that you've got this, tons of other stuff going on. But underground and people that are really looking for something real, like the house is really where it's at.
Well, that's what you were telling us. I was like, I just listen to the Grateful Dead because you're like, if you want the new version of that, if these are the people that picked up where they left off. It might not sound like that, but it is.
And you'll notice, like when I'm doing it, I make it psychedelic. I'm hitting echoes. I'm doing delays. I'm bringing the stuff in and out. Like that's no different than what the Dead were doing. It's like
exactly.
It's the same thing. And these kids, they're getting it. It's just that music resonates with the world that we're in at the moment.
Yeah.
So the Dead resonated in that world of the 60s.
Yeah.
Just like, the rock and roll in the 70s resonated in that world, and this is what's resonating now with what's really going on.
Yeah.
It's not that there isn't a lot of other good music around, but there's only certain kind of music that really is hitting the spirit of this moment. And this moment is we're in a very bad situation.
Yeah.
And if people don't start realizing that we're all in this together, that we got to stop hating each other, that people got to stop killing each other, and we got to save the planet, then we're not going to get anywhere. And back in the 60s, we knew it, and we knew it through that like the Dead, like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and stuff. But there was a we could afford to be a little more naive and optimistic back then. But at this point, especially going through the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, nobody's optimistic, but we all still understand that this is the only answer. Like there isn't any other answer.
Yeah.
Capitalism isn't going to save us. The politicians aren't going to save us. None of that's going to save us. The only thing that's going to save us is when people start realizing that we're all one, like we're all together. And then you can say it's spiritual hippy-dippy, but it's not.
No.
Like the earth, everything, we're all one thing here, and we're killing it, and we got to stop that. And so to me, that's the message that comes out in my music, that we're all one in that moment. And I think the fact that I'm so much older than the kids makes it a stronger message. Because they're connecting with me, I'm connecting with them. I'm 40 years older than anybody in the place, but we're all on the same page. Like I don't think I could do that if I was spinning rock and roll. Like it's because of what I'm spinning. And I'm still making the psychedelic. I mean, I hit those effects. I do everything I can.
We were there.
You heard. Like I'm not messing around with this shit. Like it's there. And to me, that's the key of it. It really is.
So take us back. Like, what were you doing in the 60s and the 70s? How did you so you were around you were a young man when like acid first hit the streets. Yeah.
So for me, I mean, what happened with me was I was born in Massachusetts, and I was living there in high school. And at that point, if you were a young man, you were faced with, you were either going to have to deal with a draft or go to college or get some job. I mean, the situation wasn't too good.
Those aren't great options.
And all the adults seemed to be really fucked up. I mean, honestly, to my mind, when I was like 17, 18, I considered everybody that was an adult was completely fucked up. They didn't know what the fuck was going on. Things were getting worse and worse.
Huge generational divide between you and your parents.
It was gigantic. There was there were no words there. So for me, I mean, I finally went around one day to all my friends, got money from everybody, and jumped on a bus. And I was born in Springfield, Mass, and I went to Boston. So this is 1967. So and I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I had to get out, like get away from the adults, figure out something. So I got to Boston, and I'm walking around there, and I start seeing all these hippies, and they're all walking towards Boston Commons, which is the big park in the middle of Boston. So it just so happened that I got there on the day when there was a big anti-war rally going on. I didn't know this at all. So I get there, and there's like hundreds of people, and it's like, hippies and bikers and all sorts of stuff going on, right? And I just, whoa, right? So this hippie dude comes up to me. To me, he seemed like a very much older person, but in reality, I'm sure he was only like 20 or 21. I mean, he's like a couple years older than me. But he had like super long hair, and he's like, yeah, dude. So we're talking, and he goes, dude, I know how you're feeling, and I know what we should do. I said, what's that? And he pulls out 2 tabs of acid. He goes, we should drop acid together, and I'll hang with you, and you'll see, right? And you got to realize that you grow up in the 60s, and they told you that acid fucked up your genes, that you'd have like deformed babies,
your DNA,
that you might commit suicide. I mean, it was. I don't want to pretend like it was an easy decision. Like they had filled your head with all this insane stuff about. Insane stuff. But there was just something about this dude that I just said, you know what? I'm gonna. I mean, what do I got to lose? Like everything is so fucked. So we dropped, and I mean, honestly, that trip, and I've taken many other trips, but like, that's kind of I just realized at that moment, that it's all us, and we're all in this together, and people are doing what they choose to do, and and if you want things to be different, then you got to choose to do different things, and it was just an amazing.
It sounds simple, but for an 18, 17-year-old...
it was a huge realization that I could just let it all go, and just find my people. And so from there, I started, hitchhiking around the country, and I was in, and then staying in Boston somewhat. I got very involved in the anti-war movement, trying to... always from the point of view of trying to organize hippies into working with like the students and other people because at that time the war was a very heavy thing, Yeah. Eventually, I ended up on a hippie commune in Oregon in like 1970 because of the fact that 68 and 69 were very heavy times, and there was a lot of huge demonstrations, a lot of riots, and the conspiracy trial, people getting busted and this and that. So at a certain point, a bunch of us moved up to the mountains thinking, well, maybe we'll just start the revolution up here. It's important to realize that the movement back then was very powerful and very big, and it was like all over the country. And there was a definite feeling that maybe we could actually have a revolution. And it's very important to understand that key to that was people doing LSD.
Yeah,
it's not, they can change it all they want, but the 60s were the 60s because thousands and thousands of people took LSD at the same time.
Yeah.
And they formed communes, and they came up with all sorts of crazy ideas in music and film and art, and it was all that. But the reaction of the pigs was very heavy. So,
yeah, right.
We ended up, like I said, we went up there in the mountains, and then after a couple of years there, it was plain that this was going to be a much longer haul. And that's what I mean about, we were kind of naive in the 60s, thinking, wow, with all these people and kids and, music and everything, somehow this is going to happen. But it didn't happen, Because
the powers that be were noticing what you guys were doing and starting to criminalize.
Yeah, exactly. And laws against communes and drugs and all sorts of stuff, So for me personally, I ended up moving to San Francisco like around 71 or so, and moving to a very large commune there. And because the commune was so large, we were able to actually create kind of a space in the Haight-Ashbury that was pretty cool. We had our own food co-op, and we had like a recycling center, and we had the thing I mostly worked on was a community-based event collective that we would put on events both for ourselves and for other community groups, right? So this was a way that hippies who didn't have any way of making money could survive and also provide a direct service to the rest of the community. And at that point, the commune kind of became part of the White Panther Party, which was a nationwide organization formed after the Black Panther Party. But our political platform, which, while number one was the support of the Black Panther Party, what we believed in is dope, rock and roll, sexual liberation, communal living, you know, and our whole thing was to try to create that. And for about, 5 or 6 years, we were able to do quite a bit. That's when we would put on events like block parties and street parties, but also very large concerts. So, for instance, the Starship, the Grateful Dead, both did shows for us. We broke the ban on Golden Gate Park had outlawed music events in 1969. And in 1975, we broke that ban by taking them to court, and we put on a show with the Starship and the Dead.
Hell yeah!
Which had 50,000 people.
I've heard that show.
That show is archived
Yep.
and is arguably one of the best Grateful Dead shows of that era.
Yeah.
It was kind of in that lost era where they weren't playing very much, and I think they were really
they were on hiatus.
Like everybody else, they were trying to figure out which way to go. So. That was like an amazing thing, and we kept things going, and then eventually, however, the 80s came, and I think this is when all of us kind of lost our naivete and realized that this was going to be a much longer haul to figure things out, and we got raided by the police many times. I ended up going to jail for about 1.5 years on phony charges. Because of our political activities against the government there.
Fuck.
And when we got out, I was pretty much the end of that. And at that point, I had a kid who was like 7 years old. So for me personally, I found different ways to survive, mostly doing IT work and stuff. But I never lost my love of music and people, and I went out to punk shows and reggae shows, and I was constantly still with people and doing things. But it was only in the late 90s that my kid had grown up, and I had a little bit more free time, and I was very fortunate and moved to New York and fell in with a bunch of people in Williamsburg. And Williamsburg in the late 90s, early 2000s was very similar to what was going on in the Haight.
Yeah, you told me that. That surprised me.
It was very similar in the sense of it wasn't just a bunch of kids, but it was all kids who had left wherever they were because they couldn't fit in there. Mm-hmm. And they all came here, and it was very psychedelic, and people were all tripping and getting together, and that's why you saw such a huge outpouring of great bands and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the only real difference is that when it was happening in the Haight in the 60s, it was also happening over the whole country. When it was happening, in Williamsburg, it was just much less. It was just Williamsburg. But my kind of hanging with those people who were all much younger than me. I mean, I was like maybe 50 when I got there, and most of my friends were 19 and 20, and they were kind of the ones that convinced me to get into DJing, and from there it's just been that's been my thing from then on. Finally, I got it in around 2014. I was able to stop working completely and just devote myself 100% to DJing, which is what I've been doing since then.
And that was a bold decision, too, because you had a pretty cush corporate gig.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing IT. I was making good money, but it was just like it was meaningless. There was just no point in it. And I was very inspired by all the people that I was with, the kids, and I realized I needed to get back in touch with that part of me that was real, you know, and everybody was very supportive of it, you know, and my older friends and my young friends all, and so I took the leap, and it was the right move, you know, and then since then it's just been a constant journey of developing my DJ skills and looking for that right kind of vibe to send out to people. And I've always been good at it, and it's always been fun. But it was only really in the last couple of years that I was really able to lock into something that I felt, you know, was similar to the kind of message that was coming out in the '60s, and that's the house music, you know. And it's really what I focus on now, and it's the right move. And it made me realize that, you know, it doesn't really matter what age you are. If you're not feeling it, what you're doing, you need to break out of it, you know, like you really do. And like it doesn't matter how hard it is. I mean, I'm much poorer now. My life is completely different, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
You're happier.
You know? I'm way happier, and I'm more fulfilled, and I'm probably going to live a lot longer than if I had stayed, you know, making a lot of money doing IT. It's just useless. It's worthless. And you know, that's kind of like the message I'm hoping that people realize is it's always scary to make the leap, but it was scary when I was 18, and it was scary when I was 55. You know, like right. It's always scary, but when you make that leap, 100% of the time, it's the right thing to do. You know, and so I'm, you know, I right now it's like there's nothing better than when I'm behind the decks, just sending those vibes out to everybody in the room. You know, and that's like, I don't really believe in giving speech. Like, I never gave up anything that, like, I think I can say that I never once sold out my principles. I never stabbed anybody back or lied about anything or any of that kind of stuff. And like, I just feel so right in what I'm doing, and I believe that if I can serve as an example through that it doesn't really matter how old you are or what you think you're doing. Like, you can take it to another level. Yeah. And honestly, we've all got to take it to another level, because we like, something radical has to happen if we don't want this whole thing to go down, because there are so many insane people in the world right now. I mean, we're seeing it. Yeah. You know, like I don't care what side of the fence you're on with the Middle East. Like, religious fundamentalism is wrong. It's evil. It's the evilest. The only God is, we're all God. We're all love. We're not. Anything else is ridiculous. Anything that, when you can hurt somebody else the way those people are hurting each other, there's something wrong with you.
And hide behind God.
Yeah, like it's just wrong. You know, and like. Those of us that aren't like that, those of us who have some semblance of rationality and feeling, like, we've all got to get back together. I don't believe in going back to the '60s, but communal living, getting rid of money, you know, building up the land, you know, like working in this community garden. If every single space in New York City that didn't have a building on it was turned into a garden, it would have a huge impact on things. If we got rid of all the cars, it would have a huge impact on things. These are the only things that are going to save us. And all of us starting to work together and not allowing money to be the intermediary with all of our transactions.
That's a huge one. Bypass the vibration of that.
I mean, that's what we were right in the '60s in what we knew we needed to do. That's why gay liberation, trans liberation, climate, all this stuff, that was all there. Yeah, people were into it then. We just didn't. We were just too naive about it, and we didn't quite figure out how to make it happen right.
And they took away the drugs, right when you might be starting to be onto something with it.
And now, you know, those drugs are coming back. And people are not allowing the government to push all those lies anymore, you know? So I think this is a moment when we need to take advantage of that and spread it out more, because if you can get thousands and thousands of kids to get a psychedelic experience and feel that oneness, that will have an impact on everybody. You know, and for me, it's like in my own little way, like that's what I'm trying to do.
Hell yeah, man.
I've been probably talking.
No, that was, dude. Like, this is why we had you on.
Okay. Well, this is like I think an important perspective for us to have, because I don't know, it's so tempting for me to be like, communal living doesn't work. Ego structures are too strong. Power imbalance is corrupt. And I think that you're like have lived it, and you have been through those experiences, and you do see how it's possible. And I'm just like curious how you've seen it work, and what do you think about it can work or doesn't work?
Everything that you said is correct. I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat living in communes were the absolute best moments of my life, and also some of the absolute worst moments of my life, because a lot of us were still trying to deal with sexism and misogyny and homophobia and all sorts of things. And I'm not sure that the way we did communes is right. I'm not even sure that what we need now is communes in the sense of large groups of people living together. Rather, it's more of an intercommunal feeling where people begin to treat each other in a communal way, so that instead of paying for things, people start trading things and services, and even if it's just it's more like seeing the city as an urban commune, not so much communes as groups of people intentionally living together,
solidarity.
but rather the city with everybody intentionally living together. Because what communal really means is intention, that everybody is intent and has an intention of trying to live together by certain rules that everybody agrees to. So to me, it's like when I work in the garden, that's communal. Like we have communal beds. It's not that I'm living with all those people, but when it comes to growing all that food, we're not doing it by, you're the head gardener, so you tell us what to do. We're all working it out together.
Yeah.
What can we do here? How can we work on this together? How can we, what do you, like spending the time to figure out how to make it right. So to me, it's like it's that concept of kind of an expanded communal viewpoint, so that all of us look at each other as brothers and sisters and figure out how. I mean, it would be tremendous if instead of having to go to the supermarket, everybody was growing food and trading food and doing things. These things may seem impossible, but they're not. I mean, one thing that COVID should have shown everybody is that there's all sorts of things that could be done.
Yes,
all that money that's now going to kill people in the Middle East, when it was going to all of us, let us do things that we couldn't do. It's all just a question. But the truth is, we got to get rid of all these old politicians. And this is the one thing that, it's the other 60s thing that's true, is like we got to get rid of all that old thinking.
Yeah. Old paradigm.
We got to break that. All this arguing about congestion price. Just get rid of the cars.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, that's what we do. We get caught up on like all the minutia of this problem, and it's like we're not even looking at the real problem. Why are there so many cars in the fucking city?
And that's what I mean about like if all of us in the city were communal, then we would communally say, you know what? We need to get rid of the cars.
Yeah.
And then we get rid of the car. And there would be a million problems that would come up. But if we were all willing to sit down and figure out. Now, maybe that means that every neighborhood has to be communal in its own. I don't know. But what I do know is we've got a lot more technology now. We have ways of communicating with each other that are head and shoulders over what we had in the 60s. We can... 50 of us can all be talking to each other on the same chat. Like there's all these things that can happen. So I believe that there's a way to use this technology to help us have this intercommunal way of living. I mean, the Black Panther Party was the Black Panther Party believed in intercommunalism. That's what we believed in too. And intercommunalism doesn't just mean people living in these little groups. It means
making sure
everybody,
breakfast is there.
Right,
and,
exactly, exactly. And that your laundry's done. And there's a million ways we can do that. And so that's kind of what I mean by
well,
communalism
it's just like
now.
being open to better ideas. Like
Yeah.
it's insane. We live on, I guess it's called a cul-de-sac, but it's crazy that, or I
we don't know our neighbors.
we know some of them, but not as close as you could. Like we don't need every house to have a lawnmower.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Every house has a personal lawnmower, which is like, these are things that could be more communally.
I think that the thing that they did to you guys and our generation with drugs happened to us with communal living. I think they poisoned us on the idea. They shrunk the scope to communal living means you live together on something. There's probably a cult leader there. There's drugs. There's all kinds. It's not what it is.
Not that
you just
at
described
all.
it perfectly for someone like Cass who might have been caught in that paradigm of like, wait, does this mean I have to live with people? What if I get annoyed by them? Is it like, of course you would. Everyone's human still. But starting to think of New York City as a commune, or Brooklyn,
exactly, or even
Ridgewood.
like Ridgewood, you know. And it's what I mean. Like the community garden is like there's 100 people in that garden. Like I said, some of them are moms with kids that are married couples, and there's somebody like me, right? Then there's some migrants that just came, and everyone is communally and intentionally and voluntarily treating the garden as a precious resource for the community. So when we have meetings, you know, like this is an interesting thing about it. Like this first year, about half the garden was communal and the other half was these individual plots, you know. So we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. So what we're going to do about the individual plots. And everybody was thinking, yeah, well, we'll continue. But as the meeting went on and people talked, everybody realized what they really wanted to do was make the whole thing communal.
Hell yeah.
Because they wanted to, like, the whole thing that was great about the garden was everybody working together, meeting there on a Sunday and weeding or watering, because it was giving everybody a chance to be with their neighbors in a communal experience, you know? And so now we're planning on expanding the communal part of it, you know, and this is from people who are not hippies. They're not even people you know, they're just a whole wave of people from all different walks of life. But when it comes to this thing in their neighborhood, it's making them feel something really positive.
And it has positive health impacts on you. Like that, aren't the societies that bathe together? Don't they live longer, more happier lives? Like this is a form of that.
There's this, you know, the headline is like, if you don't see your mom, she's going to die earlier because it has to do with isolation.
Yeah.
People who become isolated at an older age, maybe it's they lose the will to live, they lose the sense
Your body
of
starts shutting down.
belonging here, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, for me, it's been amazing. I was going out there twice a week and watering, and we had the open garden open to the public, so I was like running the garden a couple of days a week. We did drawing classes there. I was DJing stuff there. I mean, it was just, and it was all with people that normally I would never even have met. So that's the communal thing, you know. And once again, I mean, what makes it easier is we got a WhatsApp group for that, so that people can talk. We've got, you know, the Google Docs, so we can keep everything tracked. So the technology doesn't, you know, that's the other thing I think they're trying to, like, convince everybody that technology can only be this way with these big, giant corporations that own it all. But screw that. Technology can be whatever we want, and we can make it whatever we want. And it can definitely be used to help people be more intentional with each other and grow these communities. Because that's the only way this is going to work, is if people stop. I mean, capitalism is killing us. Communalism is opposed to it. So you know, for a long time, I mean, I was like, you know, I was a socialist and a communist. But what I really think now is, like, intercommunalism is the thing. People need to see each other as we're all in this together. There isn't others. It's just us. Yeah. We're here. If we don't do something, it's going to be gone. You know what I mean? So you know, that's kind of my feeling about it. You know?
Yeah, we're part of this bigger whole. It's not about our own personal path to the top. It's like There's no getting there alone, and there's no even there to get to.
No, that's the key. There's no end. It doesn't end. There's no end game.
Yeah.
There's no prize.
Yeah.
Like, it's the universe. It's going to go however it goes. And what you got to do is, like, try to be on the side of the green growing part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
but
totally.
it's just like it's there. It's like you're not going to, when you die, someone's going to go, yeah, Larry, you did a great fucking job. You know, like, you just got to do what feels right. But that's where psychedelics can help you realize what you are feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you want to water the garden even if it's not your flowers to pick.
Exactly.
Because you want there to be beautiful
Of
gardens.
course. Yeah.
I always think of it like a party. Like, if we were having a party and there was 20 people here, but one person was in the corner miserable crying, I can't have a good time.
Of course not.
We're
Yeah.
like, can we figure this out and, like, make sure this person's okay? Like, we're all blind to so many things. We go through life and we've trained to ignore that person that's suffering and this person that's suffering, and it just has us in this way of thinking that like, I don't know, I can't get down with, because I'm the person at the party that would be worried about the motherfucker who's not having a good time. Like, how can anyone have a good time till everyone is? That's, I don't know, at least that's what
No, I think that's true. And I think also, like, I know it seems intractable, but the truth is, like that garden that we're doing, little things like that grow into bigger things. I don't think that 10 years ago, if all the people in the neighborhood had come together, it wouldn't have ended. It would have ended up with everybody having individual plots. But the very fact that all these different people spontaneously, through talking to each other, realized that they really did want to be communal about it, shows you that most people know, they're sensing it, they feel it, that if we don't all start working together, like, this isn't going to go anywhere.
I think
like,
COVID really revealed a lot to all of us.
Yeah, you know, like, it's not going to go anywhere if we don't do that. So, you know, I think that's kind of, I mean, we've talked about this before. Like, I got to believe that all over the country, interspersed with all these completely insane people who've decided to just, like, give up their minds and whatever, that, like, most people are feeling that something really's got to happen. And the more that we can connect with each other, then the more that will grow, you know, like, and that's kind of like, hopefully, you know, like, what you guys are doing is great. The more you get people to talk about things and you get things out there. And I think there's a lot of these kind of things happening, and that's all we can keep doing is,
we got to render it out.
Yeah. Because it's there, you know, like basically, despite what they all want you to think, basically people are decent and good. There are definitely some people who have sold their souls to some evil fucking thing that's just unbelievable. But most people are good. Most people don't want to kill other people. Most people want to just have a good life and don't want to take from anybody else. They just want everybody to have a chance at things. And that's really purely a 60s feeling, you know, that hopefully will come out. And that I really think is where the psychedelics are so critical. Because psychedelics allow you, when they're done, you know, with intention and in the right set and setting, it really does open you up to this basic fact that everybody's connected, that the entire universe is, we're all one here.
And you contain that the whole time. I think all the psychedelics do is they put fear in its place. And if you're in a society that doesn't have psychedelics, like, I look at my parents, they're your age. They're media poisoned, and they're good people, but they're media poisoned, and their outlook and their whole vibration is completely different than yours because of it. And it's just because they pay attention to this thing and all the doom and gloom that the corporate media wants to tell them, all the things to be, and they just take their prescription on it. And it just, I hate what it does to them. And
instead, they should be dropping Molly and dancing.
That's what we say.
My show. I mean, it's so simple.
I know.
I'm not
simple. And we have
I'm nothing
the drugs.
special.
We
it's
have
like,
these drugs.
you know, like, they're right there. It's like, that's what keeps me going. Like, you know,
that's what keeps us going.
Like,
if you took all this stuff off the table for the rest of my life, I'd have a hard time being like, okay, you know, like, those things reveal me to me.
Yeah.
And I need a reminder because fucking life is hard, man. It's constantly like, especially the city. It's like, I always describe New York City as like, it's always trying to chew you up, swallow you down, digest you, and shit you out. And there's ways to resist that. And the way to do it is be like, oh, these are my people. They're my brothers and sisters. This isn't crushing me.
It's just got to be done with that intention and knowingly that's why you're doing it. Like that's why I do it, because it's a bulwark against that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad that you just said, just take MDMA and dance. Yeah. That's all I want my mom to do.
And she'd be
fuck
better
Trump.
off.
Who gives a fuck what Trump's doing today? What are you doing? Let's take some Molly and fucking dance.
Exactly.
Well, we watched the whole JFK thing. We were on Thanksgiving. We spent it watching,
JFK documentaries and the movie JFK.
Yeah.
Brilliant movie.
That kind of uncovers American exceptionalism and that sort of thing. And it's like, but so you just watch that, that happened, and then you're gonna take the prescription that they're giving you.
The CIA killed this guy because he was anti-war.
And
you're gonna believe anything they fucking told you since.
And they use the media to make you believe.
There was one guy that did this. He was a crazy guy. He has nothing to do with us.
And so they're using the media now to keep you scared and keep you consuming, because it's this insatiable greed that we're having to bow down to. And it's a mind virus that we all can fall victim to, and we all have to keep reminding each other.
Yeah.
And
like what you're describing, like it might to some people sound insurmountable. How could we ever get there? This is generations after generations of work. I think it can happen overnight. It's a changing of a mindset.
Yeah, exactly.
You changed your mindset, you stopped working.
Very fast in the 60s.
Yeah.
But once again, it was because so many people all dropped acid at the same time.
Took the veil down.
You could say whatever you want. Yeah. That's what happened. I was there. That is what happened. Now a lot of those people gave up. Yeah. Got sucked into whatever.
They stopped taking it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the amount of strength you had to have to continue being living in communes and doing things at that time was very heavy.
Get the fuck out of here.
I mean, they killed a lot of people and they locked us up and all this.
Yeah.
So,
and there's cocaine.
And heroin. I mean, those. That's the other thing to understand. It is a chemical war. They understand that. So they flood the city with heroin for the poor people, and they flood the art world with cocaine, which just completely screwed it up, and that's the other thing about now is people need to understand every drug has its negative and positive, and certain drugs are and this is another thing from the 60s, some things are life affirming, some things are death affirming. It's not there's nothing moral about it. It's just like LSD and Molly are one thing, heroin and cocaine are something else. You just have to realize that it's not a moral thing. It's just like, go ahead, do it, but do it with the open eyes that if you're either playing with death or you're playing with life.
Interesting. That's a really great way of putting it, because it just simplifies it.
Yeah.
Takes all the fucking drug war nonsense out of it.
So it's just that simple.
And so, heroin, would you say that's death affirming because it takes you away from life?
Yeah, because it puts a veil. Instead of opening you up and dissolving your ego, it puts this cocoon around you and lets you dissolve into your own self, which is exactly what you don't want to do. You want to open yourself. The thing about psychedelics is they dissolve the ego. Right. For that one moment, they let you forget about all this constructs so that you no longer can tell about time, and you can look at your phone and go what is this pretty thing, and throw it in the air. You know what I mean? Whereas with heroin, you just kind of fall back into yourself. Yeah. And cocaine is like a direct shot to it's making your ego 15,000 times bigger than it already is, which is the last thing anybody needs.
I know.
It's
it's crazy. It's so popular.
You want it to go away. That's the beauty of psychedelics. It frees you from that kind of thing that you have to use to get through the day. Not forever. I'm not saying you can't be psychedelic your whole life, but once you felt that ego dissolve, and once you feel that oneness with the universe and stuff, you won't forget it, and if you allow yourself to really feel that. But when people do these other drugs, like, they're going to end up in those places. Plus, in fact, the other reality is, I mean, heroin's a poison.
Yeah.
You're poisoning yourself.
Yeah.
No one's ever OD'd on LSD or Molly. Like, it's not going to happen.
Or mushrooms or weed.
There's a reason for that.
Yes.
Like that thing is one thing, and like, so to me, it's like, we really people need to choose life, and psychedelics are on the positive life side of things.
Very well put. Very well put. Really appreciate that.
That's why we don't need, and if some people want to just like sit in a corner, and then, you know what, give them the fucking heroin and let them sit in the fucking corner. Why have this whole game of arresting people and letting the cartels make millions of dollars? Like, just make the shit free and give it to them.
Yeah.
What the fuck do you care?
Yeah,
if somebody wants to sit there and just fucking shoot dope, like, go ahead.
Yeah.
It's better than all these fucking crazy fundamentalists running around wanting to kill women and go nuts on people and stuff like that.
Well, they realize they can make money off that guy if they put him in a...
Exactly.
That guy's very valuable. Yeah. Like, they look, you overlook these people, you pass them by, but they're very valuable. And I always say this, even in just the optics of that surplus labor, motherfuckers, keep going back to work if you don't want to end up like this guy. And so they're always going to be there as long as we keep playing the capitalist game. Yeah. But if we played this other game of compassion, like you're saying, maybe we could say, hey, we have that stuff for you. It's here. It's for free. We're not going to stigmatize you about it anymore. I bet you they don't want to do it. I bet you they don't care. Once, you just got to create a better, we're not going to solve the drug problems of this country with more drugs and this and that. We have to change society and soften it so it's more people can get down with this.
Like, make sure everybody understands what the impacts of drugs are. Make sure that everybody can get their drugs tested and legalize everything.
Yeah.
Just forget this. Like, this is the kind of thing we need, and then I just think it would be better. It would be different. I mean, you look how they're messing up the whole pot. They can't even open up pot stores, and they won't let any of us just grow pot here. Why shouldn't we be able to just grow pot and trade it for food? Like, there's all sorts of things that could be going on.
Yeah. Yeah, but the government route going through that, it's always paved with fucking loopholes and little things. How the fuck could New York botch legalization of cannabis the way that they have? It's a fucking mess. Like, because
New York is completely corrupt.
Yes, exactly.
I mean that's the other thing that you realize, when you let yourself really look at things. Like, it's the things that no one wants to talk about. Yeah. This city's been corrupt since the day it started. Yeah. It's as corrupt now as it was 30 years ago.
Exactly.
The mayor is equally as corrupt as any mayor that's ever been. And everybody's like, oh, they're all walking around it. But we all know it. Mm-hmm. And this is the thing, like we need to start taking that knowledge and look at each other and say, yeah, this really is the situation.
Yeah.
And so the way to do it is like, yeah, you guys just go over there and let us do our thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is, once again, where maybe it has to happen on, small blocks or little things at a time. But the more people begin to work together and figure out how to relate to each other without the transactional money thing, because that's the biggest and hardest, but capitalism is killing us. Like, we need to figure out a way to relate to each other without money, whether that's through trading services or trading goods, but we just got to get away from anything else. And people need to stop with this whole, the educational complex and thinking that somehow it's great for you to, get all these degrees and somehow you're going to become a rich person and do all, like, forget all that. Like, learning should be happening with all of us together. Like, we wanted to get rid of the universities in the 60s. And honestly, like,
exactly.
It was a good idea then, and it's a good idea now. This stuff is useless.
It really is. And now it's just used as a way to enslave people to debt. You come out with
what's
debt.
What's the sense of it? And debt is another thing where we need to start. I mean, personally, I think that everybody needs to get together and we need to stop paying off the debt. If everybody stopped paying their mortgages, stopped paying their loans, stopped paying all this kind of stuff, you know what happened? The banks would collapse. Now everybody's thinking, oh my God, the banks are going to, you know what? we'd be way better off if
They're
there
way
were
too
no
powerful.
banks.
They're
They're
too powerful.
way too powerful.
If
It'd
you
be
knew what they were
awesome
doing with
if
your
they
money, you'd be
collapsed.
mortified.
Yeah.
That you don't even have your money. That they have already fucking invested it, 90% of it.
So people can say, "Oh my God, well, if it all collapsed, we'd have to figure out a ways to live with each other."
We'd figured it out quick too.
And we would figure it out. And once again, I mean, these ideas for me come directly out of being psychedelic and taking psychedelics. Like they allow you to think about this whole other way of being.
Yeah.
That is possible. And like there's a reason why people for thousands of years have had these ceremonies. I mean, it's to reiterate these feelings and keep people like locked in with each other.
And it's a
and
form
now we
of
have
resistance.
and we have this technology that it could make it happen. I think. I mean, I definitely think it could be.
Dude, when the first day that the pandemic started, New York City said, shelter in place or whatever, I was like, we're not paying rent. It was hard to convince Cass, but she was like, okay, cool. I was like, we're stopping paying rent, but let's get everyone in the building to stop paying rent because they just shut down the economy. We're fucked. We're not going to be able to do anything ourselves, but if this whole building stopped paying rent, they would then go to their higher up person, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We sent out 36 notes to the whole building. We got 10 people involved. Only 10 out of the 36 units were down to do it. And then they just dropped like flies.
Us included.
Us kind of included. We resisted, and they were like, when the economy opened back up, they were like, you have to leave. You owe us $30,000. I said, I'm not paying. And they were like, all right, fine. If you just get the fuck out, you don't have to pay the $30,000. So we got away with not paying rent for over a year. And we resisted, and guess what? They got fucking refunded the money anyway.
Yeah.
There's no way for them to fail.
Yeah.
There's no way for them to fail unless we fuck with them.
They're not going to fight for us. They're not going to fight for us.
But remember, what they did have to do was they had to stop evictions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
that was the power I knew we had.
It just shows you that if the more people get together, we can push. If people stop playing the money game and the debt game, but you're right, it will only works if thousands and thousands of people do it.
Yeah.
But that can happen.
Yeah.
That can. I mean, the reason the Vietnam War stopped was because people stopped fighting.
Yeah.
The soldiers there stopped fighting, and people here stopped fighting. Like it's the same thing with the debt thing. Like eventually, that's the way it's got to go because we got to get rid of these banks. It's just.
They're controlling our lives.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy to me that like our parents could buy a house for $300,000 back in the day.
Not even
live in it for 30 years and then still owe 150.
Yeah.
Well, because our parents got caught in the debt cycle and they had to keep leveraging their thing
and 18% interest. It's like it's criminal.
The really nefarious thing is like, and I guess it started with Nixon taking us off the gold standard. Not to get too deep in this, but like. He takes us off the gold standard. Now the Federal Reserve, which is just some made up thing, controls our money. So wages have stagnated since then, but it's because of inflation. Like we always say stuff like, man, a movie ticket used to be $1.50, but now it's this, and no one thinks twice about why the fuck is a movie ticket get so expensive. Our money has been rendered worthless. Wages don't go up, the money becomes more worthless. So even just keeping your money, even if you took all cash for every job you did, it's becoming more and more worthless as it sits there. That's a fucked up system where no one can get ahead.
And it's not inflation, it's greedflation.
Yes.
All this, people talking about prices now, that's just pure and simple. They're just raising the prices to make more money.
Yeah.
And you have this, this continual situation. As long as anybody can't see that a guy who's a CEO who makes 300 times what the people who work for him do, that somehow that in any way possible. I mean, I can tell you for a fact, I work for Wells Fargo Bank.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you the CEO of Wells Fargo Bank didn't know how to put his feet into his fucking shoes. He just looked good.
Yes.
They're just stupid, greedy, evil people.
And he'd behave for the,
He just knew how to look good.
Yes,
I mean, that's all they are. Biden, all of them, they're all that way.
Yeah.
That's how they are. They're not. They're just phony.
Yeah.
They're completely phony. And until we start, people just need to realize this. Like, screw these people.
Well,
nobody, $1 million. Like nobody is doing anything worth $1 million a year.
Are you fucking kidding me?
It's like. And once again, I think when you're psychedelic, you realize the true value of things. I mean, you can't tell me that when I'm DJing, that what I'm doing is any less intense than what the biggest name DJ in the world is doing. In fact,
or the biggest CEO for that matter.
But the fact is, I'm probably doing more than that guy because that guy is playing for like 50,000 people in some fucking crummy place where they're paying $10 for a bottle of water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm in this place with like 30 people and we're looking at each other and we're feeling each other.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you which one is the real DJing.
Totally.
You know,
exactly.
Once again, like this is like. That's where psychedelics come in because they give you some real perspective on stuff, you know, and we all get caught up in it, you know, but like it's just ridiculous what's going on now with these billionaire, you know, all respect to, you know, Taylor Swift and Beyonce, but come on, dude.
What are we doing?
They're like making billions of dollars.
Billions?
It's like it's got nothing to do with life.
Yeah,
It's got nothing to do with it. It's just another big TV show to keep people spaced out.
Well, that's
Spending.
you know.
and that's what the psychedelics do. It makes you realize, like, oh, someone made these rules. Someone
Exactly.
decided about money, and you're like, oh, if this was by human design, human can continue to evolve the design, and you can change
Exactly.
how it is. And I think they
Exactly.
get us in so many ways with this myth of unskilled labor and people not having whatever. They've totally just pulled the wool over to separate us more and devalue, and it's insane. Other eyes. I wish that. I don't understand exactly. We should just be like, you can't make a certain amount of money.
Of course not.
Like, what are we talking about?
ridiculous.
It's
It's just
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Because over a certain amount, it just totally it's inherent to it that people got exploited.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
people are trying to say Taylor Swift earned this $4 billion
No, she
in the most
didn't.
honest way, and it's like, who made the shirts? Where did tell me, were those shirts made in America? How much were the people? No, they weren't. Trust me. Who made that? Who did this? The scalpers got rich. Regular people got fucking fleeced. Get the fuck out of
The
here.
promoters all made millions. Like, come on, you know what I mean? She's a nice lady, but come on, you know, it's like ridiculous.
She's she's part of the system. She's not going to break out of the system. It's not all Taylor Swift's fault. It's like our system is built on greed and,
But going back to what you said, you know, like the very first insight I ever had on my very first acid trip was we were standing there, and I was looking at you know, we were up on the hill in the commune, and you could see the cars going by, and I just realized, I said, all these people could just stop those cars and just get out, and come over here, and we could all, you know what I mean, like, and it would all just stop, you know, and that's when I realized, I said, and that's all I got to do is just stop, you know, and all that worry I had about what was I going to do in my life, and like how was I going to deal with the war or my parents, I just really, you know what.
All the shit they wanted you
I
worried
just gotta
about.
stop. Let it all go. Like I'm around all these fucking incredible people right here, and we're all feeling this beautiful sun. And
How would you have realized that if it weren't for a
the LSD
substance?
is what, you know, like absolutely, like it completely changed my life.
Breaks
from
the
that
programming.
moment to here, and I've been very fortunate that there was never a moment in my life where I ever forgot that. I
Hell
can
yeah.
truly say that. Even when I was working for the bank, I I never forgot that. And plenty of times I would go head to head with the fucking pigs there, and they just couldn't shake me.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I just say, you want to fire me? Fucking fire me. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, unstoppable force.
Because when you don't give a fuck, like that's the key. And that's one of the things that psychedelics can help you understand. Because it's your ego that gives a fuck, not you.
Yes.
And you're not your ego.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the key. That's probably one of the most important things that psychedelics does for you.
Yeah.
Is make you realize that the you that's you isn't just that voice in your head talking to you. Mm-hmm. It's this whole other thing that's connected to everybody else.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. You've blessed us. Larry, DJ PreSkool. What's the best way for people to find you?
Well, DJ PreSkool on Instagram is probably the best, or you can go to djpreschool.com, which is my website, and check my shit out. If
School
you're in New
with
York,
a K.
Yeah, SKOOL.
Yeah.
So PreSkool.com. And if you're in New York, come find me, man.
Hell yeah. We'll be there.
Let's take Molly and dance the house music.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother.
Love you guys.
Peace, love, and
Love you.
magic.
Thanks,
Yep.
Larry.